Good evening, Watcher of Realms. What's going on, guys? Blunt Cuts here. Appreciate y'all tuning into my channel. I am here to talk about Falcia. Obviously, we've got a Falcia banner coming in a couple of days. This will be the third time that they have run the Falcia banner, which is unfortunate because there are so many other limiteds that are much more desirable than she is. But nevertheless, they are going to be running her again, and they did do a rework on her recently, so I wanted to take a look at how her damage does stack up against some of the best fighters in the game, specifically against Wukong and Kigiri, her limited fighter counterparts. Wanted to see if the new Falcia was going to be able to keep up with them. In this video, I will show you a sample of the run that I did to collect my data. I'm going to go to the spreadsheet after that. We're going to talk through the results. I'm going to give you my opinion on Falcia. Beyond that, at the end, I am going to talk a little bit about whether or not I think she is worth pulling for, and specifically about how she is going to fit into an Abyss 1 team if you do decide to use her, so stay tuned for that. Let's go talk about the team I was using. Before I show you the run, I do want to talk through the team that I did use to collect this data. And as you can see, I did go with an esotericist comp for Falcia with Nastya as the lead. Now, I tested a number of different lords with this. I tested Cyrus, I tested Elder. Nastya, when you can stack enough debuffs, far exceeded the other two. Elder was somewhere in the neighborhood of a 12 to 15% damage loss. If you are planning to run Falcia as a Northerner, take advantage of some of those shield mechanics. Overall, it does seem to be a loss, but that is assuming that you do have enough poisoners to bring along with Nastya's. Because ultimately, the only way that you can max out Nastya's damage bonus for her allies is to have 8 debuffs up on the target at all times. On the other side, the units I did want to compare Falcia to: Wukong, Kigiri. Those units were in the Nightmare faction. I could have used them in the Watchguard, and I do know that at times that can produce higher results. In Nightmare 4, I do prefer to use them in the Nightmare comp. I typically have better results that way, and I do think that that is the way that more often than not people are going to be using Wukong and Kigiri these days. Not everybody does have Ingrid, even if it does feel like everybody does. We've, of course, got Elwyn in there for Rage Regen. We've got Diaochin in there for Inspiration. Let's go take a look at the run. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the run. Let's talk through the results that I did get here. Starting with A0, you can see Wukong did come in as the top dog, the top monkey, as it were. 146 million damage from Wukong. He was at 100% of top damage. He is the top damage, so of course, he did 100% of his own damage. Kigiri, on the other hand, 83 million damage, 56% of Wukong's. Falcia, 123 million. Very, very respectable A0. Now remember, this is in a Nastya comp. It's ideal circumstances for Falcia. It's not something that you could replicate if you don't have the specific units that you do see in here. So if you can't replicate this comp 100%, remember, the damage is going to scale down. But she did come in at just under 85% of A0 Wukong's damage at A0. At A1, See, RNG did get the better of Wukong. He actually lost 2% damage going from A0 to A1. Kigiri, on the other hand, gained about 13% damage. He was at 65% of Wukong's damage. Wukong, I don't think I said, did 143 million damage. Kigiri, 93 million, almost 94 million damage at A1. Falcia, RNG was on her side, 129 million. Now, the reason I say RNG for both Wukong and Falcia is because their A1s do not actually give them any extra damage. Both of them are utility A1s, so we really shouldn't see a material difference in damage output for either of those heroes, but RNG was at play here, and we do see a little bit of a swing, but Wukong still pretty solidly ahead. Falcia doing about 90% of his damage at A1. Moving on to A3, Wukong did 178 million damage, pretty substantial awakening for him. He gained 24% damage going from A1 to A3, but he was not the top damage because Kigiri did manage to get an early swallow counter, and at A3, Kigiri has the potential to just take off. There's quite a bit of RNG, but when he gets going early, he can do a lot of damage. He did 220 million, the top damage at this awakening level, 135% damage increase going from A1 to A3. Very, very impressive from Kigiri. Kind of a best case scenario based on what I've seen the other times I have tested Kigiri in this same comp. Falcia, on the other hand, 178,780,000. That is very, very slightly ahead of Wukong, almost the exact same, but whereas Wukong did 81% of Kigiri's damage, Falcia did 81.02. So 0.02% more damage than Wukong. Pretty minuscule, very much RNG at the end of the day, but A3 Falcia is kind of her peak. This is where she's going to do her most damage, and it is very similar to A3 Wukong, which is very, very impressive. Now, one thing I do want to note, both Kigiri and Wukong do have defense ignore components to their kit. Higher defense targets than the Nightmare 4 guild boss will produce better results for Wukong and Kigiri. They are going to scale better against those kinds of encounters. A5 is where Falcia really drops off relative to these two. 260 million damage from Wukong, 264 million damage from Kigiri, who once again was the top damage. Wukong came in at 98.61% of his damage. Wukong did gain about 46% increased damage going from A3 to A5. That A5 is a sumbitch. It is so goddamn good. Kigiri, on the other hand, paltry 20% damage, still pretty significant, but most of his gain was going from A1 to A3. Falcia does not actually gain any damage going from A3 to A5. She gains crit rate on the A4, and she gains a utility awakening on the A5. That does mean that the only substantial damage increase that Falcia does get from her awakenings is at the A2 when she gains attack, and at the A3 when she does gain an extra 8% damage for every 100 attack speed that she does have. In this case, I did have her at 521 attack speed, which does mean she should have had approximately a 40% damage boost. You couple that with the 40% damage boost she was getting from Nastya, and that's why you see big numbers here. But going from A3 to A5, there is no difference, which is why she's still down at 180 million at A5, which was only 70%, 69.34% technically of Kigiri's A5 damage. If you are curious about the gear that I did have on these units, I do have it all summarized in the table on the right-hand side of this sheet. I will post this sheet in the description of this video so you can go and you can check out the data yourself. But if you do have questions, you're more than welcome to ask me in the comments of this video or hop on my Discord. I'm more than happy to help you out there as well. I do like Falcia. I think she's a solid hero. I just think it's unfortunate that she didn't get to this state earlier. If she was this good when she was first released, she would have been one of the OG good heroes in the game. She was one of the first exclusives. She could have been fantastic, but they waited too long in my opinion. And now there are more powerful units that really outclass her in the role that she would be doing. As I said earlier, the only way you can really max her damage is by having her 1, A3 or higher, and 2, in a Nastya comp. She's going to lose significant damage being run with either Elder or with Cyrus. I don't even want to talk about what's going to happen if you run her with Anoma or with Hars. So not really somebody who I think is going to be all that viable. Now, I do want to take a second to talk about Abyss 1, but before I do that, I do want to take a second to talk about Smile 1. Smile 1 is the official third-party payment platform for Watcher of Realms. Now, I don't think you should be summoning for Falcia. I don't think you should be spending on this game, but I am obligated to tell you a little bit about the deals that they do have going on right now to the left of me on the screen, so go ahead and take a look at that. If you're going to buy, not a bad idea to be buying from Smile 1. Save a little bit of money. You should save about 10% on your W Gold purchase when you do buy through Smile 1. So if you are going to spend, may as well do it smart. Buy through Smile 1. There's a link in the description of this video that is specific to me. Full transparency, anything you do buy there may benefit me at the end of the day as well, so it is another way you can support my channel. With that said, I want to make it absolutely clear, I am not telling anybody to spend. Certainly not telling anybody to spend irresponsibly. So if you are going to spend, spend smart, spend on Smile One, or just don't spend at all. Let's talk a little bit about Falcia in Abyss 1 before I do close this one out. Falcia is interesting. You know, Abyss 1 is a fight that does rely heavily on either physical or magic damage. Falcia actually does both of those things. She does both of those things. If you look at her ultimate here, you can see deals 200% physical damage 5 times and 200% magic damage 5 times. She also, because of her high attack speed and the low ultimate cost, does work around this ultimate very, very quickly. So she's somebody you might think could be ideal for a fight like Abyss 1. Unfortunately, my experience is that is just not the case. I did some testing. The results were so uninspiring, I did not even feel like it made sense to put them in a spreadsheet and show them to you. At the end of the day, the way you want to think about it, she does about a quarter of the damage of a Wukong. Now, the rub is that she can do a quarter of the damage of a Wukong to both the physical side as well as the magic side in Abyss 1, which does mean she ends up doing cumulatively about 50% of the damage that Wukong could do. It's not terrible, but because it's spread out between those two bosses, is minimal impact on either side. You might think that the damage reduction that she does get at A1 might make her worth pulling for, but my experience is that it's very difficult to work back around to her ultimate within 15 seconds. The only way that I think you can do it is if you do run her in Cataclysm and you do have an Esoteric faction ring on her that does, I believe, restore rage when the ultimate is used. That is going to shrink the downtime in between ultimates. You might be able to fit it in within 15 seconds. I think it's still going to be challenging based on what I've seen. Unfortunately, I don't have any Esotericist faction gear on the test server, so I wasn't able to test this myself. I can say I was close to keeping the debuff up without that, so I do believe that would be kind of the missing piece. However, one of the other Esotericists that you do want to be bringing with Nastya does already bring damage reduction. It's more reliable. That is Numera. So there's really no reason that you should be bringing Falcia over Numera. Numera is unequivocally going to be doing more damage in Abyss 1 than Falcia does. On top of that, if you think about the composition that you would need in order to bring Falcia into Abyss 1, you need to bring more than 4 ground units to accommodate her, because I have to assume you're going to be bringing Wukong, Kigiri, Numera, a tank, and Falcia would be the 5th ground unit that you would be bringing in. And there's just not enough room for her unless you do have Nerissa at A3+. And there's just not that many people that do have that right now. And on top of that, she's not really worth accommodating in that way, in my opinion. So I just don't think that she is really worth pulling for, honestly, which again, don't recommend you spend. And we've got so many crazy things on the horizon. I do not think this is the time to be spending resources on an exclusive hero that I just don't see being used really anywhere. The only thing I could say is that maybe if Elder does get a massive rework, it's possible, and this is just pure speculation, it's possible, not even likely, but possible that Falcia suddenly becomes very good. I think that's a problem that you'll worry about if and when it does happen. Furthermore, you do need to have Falcia at A3+ to get anywhere close to the damage output you are getting from Wukong or Kigiri. And again, that is not in Abyss 1. So anytime you're going up against units that do have very high defense, her value is going to be diminished. So keep that in mind. Ultimately, I just don't think the juice is worth the squeeze, and I think there are better things that are going to be coming in a couple weeks. Few weeks, I guess. I don't know how long it's going to be, but whenever the anniversary does drop, there's probably going to be some crazy good heroes, probably some tactical mastery stuff coming out. So I would personally say for that, rather than giving into the FOMO that is Falcia, just my recommendation to you. I'm giving it to you here in this video because I'm not going to be doing a Should You Summon video this week. In fact, I'm probably not going to be doing a lot of video creation going forward on this channel. I'm going to be taking a bit of a break. Got another project I will be working on. So yeah, I will have one more video out in a couple days. I do encourage you all to tune into that. We'll have a promo code for you guys. It's kind of a thank you and goodbye. But I will just say I've had a phenomenal experience. For those of you who don't catch that other video, thank you so much for your support. This has been just so much fun building this channel, and I can't tell you how much the support, the connections I've made with all of you really means to me. So thank you so much, guys. Tune in to that next video. Should be out in a couple days, and I will give you a little bit more details at that point about what I'm going to be doing with this channel as well as my other project. And yeah, thanks so much, guys. Good luck to you. If you have any questions, sound off in the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. Again, my recommendation, pass on Falcia. I will catch you all next time.